Good evening, everyone. Welcome. We're going to call the meeting to order here. And Mark, you want
Yes, I want to make a quick comment. We're short on mics today. Didn't have enough charge when we arrived here today. So we'll be happy to share mics if you can't hear us. So let us know if you can't hear us and we'll share our mics. Also, we do have 2 assisted listening devices for those who might have hearing issues. If you want to use those, we have 2 of those here. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Mark. We have approved publication.
Yes, sir. It is in the agenda package.
And before we establish a quorum here, I just want to introduce the attorney for the Fellsmere Water Control District. Jonathan is visiting us from Tallahassee today. Normally he's listening remotely. Welcome. Thank you. We have a quorum. All 3 supervisors present. Are there any requests for additions or deletions to the agenda? Need approval of the minutes of September 12th, regular board meeting. Move approval. Second. All in favor say aye. Aye. September 12th meeting minutes are approved. Have old business. Would be change order for Park Lateral Canal cleaning. Is that going to be George or Mark?
I'll take that.
Okay.
Park Lateral had a issue with regards to the amount of material that was dug out, and they didn't have enough space in our right of way to place the material, but that's where they placed it because that's where we told them to place it. St. John's called us up and said, we really can't leave it there, it's going to drain onto our road, we're trying to pave the road, we really need to put it someplace where it's not going to drain onto our road. So we had to take it and handle it the second time, so they had to move that road the second time to the other side of the road, and it has been stockpiled for drying out for future use by us and Warren St. John's. And so this is to cover the cost of relocating that spoil to a proper place.
And that's $5,500 in addition to the contract.
Hey, stop y'all, but Martin, did you just say Park Lateral?
I did, it's making out.
Making out.
Correct.
Yeah, go ahead, straight that. Go ahead.
And I'm sorry, did you just say that dirt will be stockpiled for use by the FWCD or
St.
St. John's? Why would St. John's have claim for that?
We are using their right of way, and it's the cost of using their right of way.
By putting the dirt on their right of way? Is there anywhere else that we can put it?
We don't have enough right of way in that area to put the dirt. The dirt has
That's the
no,
grade.
the dirt doesn't have any economic value, it's bumped from the bottom of the ditch canal. It's only available for landscape fill dirt, it's not for house pads or road dirt or anything like that.
You could use it for road bed.
No, not even close to it. Not even close.
Just so you picture, this is on the north side of the main canal. So up there on the Fellsmere Grade Road. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Has the dirt already been removed, or is it still to be removed?
I believe that.
No, the dirt's all been moved.
Where is it at now?
It is on the St. John's right of way, north of the Fellsmere Grade.
Well, so it's already been done.
Yes.
But that dirt pile that I just drove down there today and looked at it, it's about 120 feet long and about 50 feet wide and about 10 feet tall. And it looks like there's all kinds of room on the south side of the road for that much material.
Again, we don't own all that land on the south side.
We don't own it on the north side either, right?
That's why we had to move it, because St. John's didn't want it on the south side.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's just, it would be too long to reach to pick it up on the north side and put it up onto the bank on the south side. It's just more than the excavator reach can be, so.
I understand, but the distance between the Fellsmere grade and the edge of the
We've
ditch.
already answered that question, we don't own that land.
Okay, I'm just curious.
It's that simple.
Just curious why it makes a difference.
Yeah,
But the change order was for main canal, not Park Lateral.
yes, we've been,
Verified.
we corrected that already.
Verified.
Okay. The work's been done, but I think we just should have a vote to approve or ratify this change order for $5,500 on the main canal.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor, aye? Aye. Under new business,
I have no past actions to ratify.
okay, we have a resolution to change the bank signers. That's adding Mark Mathis as a signer on the bank account. We have a resolution 2024-02 in your packet. Oh, I'm sorry, 01, yeah.
Chairman's also adding me, not a previous sign.
That is correct. We're also
Okay.
adding Mr. Kurtz.
Now I gotta rethink that. So I need a, do we pass this motion? Okay. So I need a motion to approve this resolution, sorry, 2024-01, adding Mark Mathis and John Kurtz as signers on the bank account for Fellsmere Water Control District.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Also, I wanted to ask if we could talk for a quick second about the use of the petty cash for the district. Occasionally, the operator and myself have small purchases to make, like under $100. It just adds a lot of extra administrative paperwork to have to, go through a different route. It's just a lot easier to just have a petty cash for it. You'd be okay to authorize $100 petty cash for it.
That sounds fine to me. Do we have any motion? Yeah.
I moved.
You see that at other districts, Jonathan, and you hear the petty cash?
A very low limit.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, I might come back and adjust it after we use it a little bit. Let's start.
Okay.
So moved for $100. I'm sorry, second for $100.
Now it sounds like a bid.
That's it.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. And the motion passes. So we're on to resolution 2024 to 2025 2, assigning the district manager as the records custodian for the district.
What does that entail?
The records custodian is required before the law to designate somebody who's responsible for the public records of the entity. So I would be responsible for the public records.
Is that anything like Rodney and y'all did a resolution last year about record keeping?
Yes, that would have been designated maybe Frank or the old district operator as that, yes.
Got a
I
motion?
move that we pass the resolution appointing Mark Mathis as the records custodian for the district. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next item of business is to declare surplus office equipment and authorize disposal.
There should be a list in your packet of that office supplies, which I covered out of the office, probably dating from the 90s and 2000s, maybe even the original 1980s, I can figure out, but it's got no economic value whatsoever, none of it does. The only thing that might have value is a water dispenser, one of those old-fashioned jug dispensers, which I'm not going to use, that might be the only thing that has value. I'll try to get value out of all of it, but most likely it's going to be value.
We have an option.
I'll probably put it on webdeals.com, that seems to be an easy thing to do. The city has an account, the training out of the account, I'll just put it all in there for a couple weeks, and when it takes it, I'll just look.
Mark, we're having a little bit of a hard time hearing you. If you could step
Oh,
up.
sorry about that, thank you. I didn't get the right. This is just to declare certain office equipment surplus that has been in the closet for 20 years.
Move approval. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so surplus office equipment to sell on. Next
Could I ask a question, please? What about surplus big equipment like the lever?
Surplus capital, my goal is to put that on the January agenda. I'm gonna need to work with, probably the, farm manager to get some photographs of the old drag lines. And then we have one piece of equipment in our, storage area on Willow. And then we also have the spray truck, which is operational and has some value. I don't see the district having employees in the future spraying. But again, that's something we don't have to let go of right away. We want to think about it a little bit more. But the drag lines and the excavator that's not been used for a while, those are definitely worth surplus. And so I've been on the agenda for January.
Are they gonna be more just the weight of the metal? in terms of
More than
value?
likely, everybody bids on it, probably the way to go. Maybe the machine, somebody might try to fix it, but I think the drag lines are probably pretty well and beat up with it.
Yeah, I think it's a good time.
So we're still selling the spray truck?
No, we're not selling the freight truck, but we're gonna talk about it in January.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 5, under new business, resolution 2024-2025-03, adopting fiscal year. Okay, that'd be amending the budget for the last year, 23-24. Is that
Correct. This is the standard year-end budget amendment. And there are two ways that we are allowed by law to amend your budget. You can do it as you go, or you can wait till the end of the year and just do it once. The district has always waited till the end of the year and done it once. So this is the end of the year budget amendment. This year was a little different than others because during the course of the year, the board decided to get into major canal maintenance projects to use the surplus revenues they've had in the bank for years. And so that wasn't in the original budget because that decision was made after the budget was adopted last year. So that money that was spent has to now be rolled into the budget. In addition to that, there were some overages on various line items in the budget, and the overages were also in excess of the original budget amount, so additional reserves had to be drawn out to cover those budget overages. So the piece of paper in the agenda packet has the annual budget that was adopted, and it has the amended final budget that you're proposing, and it has a column right next to it that shows actual spend to date. So the far right column should match the center column exactly, because that's what we're doing. We're amending the budget to match what we spent. The only difference is I left $20,000 in reserves only in case some bill came in that we may have missed and we needed to throw into last year, so I could put the money in there and throw it into last year. That money not likely is going to get spent, so it's going to remain in the bank and will become available for this current fiscal year meeting. That's the only difference between those columns. So again, getting back to the overages, you can see the overages were quite extensive is a strong word, but some categories they were, but there were a lot of overages. The biggest overage was engineering, and that was because we asked the engineer to do a couple of projects that we had not thought of asking during the budget preparation. So we did the 2023 profile update of the sub-laterals, and then we did all the engineering that was related to preparing the RFP and the design package for canal maintenance. And so those took up a big chunk. I think there was also the emergency repair pipe that we had to deal with during that last year. So there are reasons for the overage on the engineering, but again, that was the biggest overage. And there were small overages on a lot of the items. And those smaller overages, just because prices were higher, when we got around to spending money than we estimated, or it just might have been a bad estimate.
What page was that, Mark?
This is page 12 of the agenda package.
Well,
Hey, Mark, real quick, General Audios. The emergency, is that the one that we talked about before that was 96K? Is that the emergency one?
Yeah, it is the emergency repair.
Okay, all right.
And I'll answer your questions when we get to public comment on that.
Okay, thanks.
So again, this is a standard thing we do every year to match the budget to what was spent. In a perfectly budgeted year, you would not need to do this exercise. But again, things come up, no one anticipated 14 inches of rain, remember? So we had to act, we had to respond. And the budget, thankfully we had reserves to be able to respond. And we'll talk about this later on in the agenda, we have a package talking about proposed changes for the current last fiscal year.
I guess I misspoke. Your account balances, do you have account balances from the prior year that carries over?
Yes, we do, and those are shown at the very bottom. The fund balance as 9/30/24 is $146,576.
Mr. Kurtz, are you okay, since you're the financial expert here, are you okay with that amended budget? Do you have any comments?
Yes, and Mark and I found this in his office a couple weeks ago. I would just note that I believe, if I'm correct, that survey, all the sub-laterals was like $80,000. I believe, and that was authorized before I was on the board. That's what Mark is now using us to go and do all of his different elevations and observations of the canal. Am I correct, Mark?
Yes, and I tell you, that survey is truly very valuable. The last time we did that survey was in 2003, and I would encourage the district moving forward that every so many years, it doesn't have to be 5, 10, 20 years, we update that, because that's the only way we're gonna find out if there's something hidden below that's blocking the flow of water.
Where's the line item for that survey that you're discussing?
Again, that is in the overages of the engineering line.
Okay,
That's the 161,867, it's part of that number.
okay.
So it's very valuable. It also helps me set forward elevations for new properties that come into it. So it's very valuable to have.
We need a motion to approve?
Yes, please.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes for the amended budget approval. Next item, is approval of the mowing vendor for sub-laterals. We have a contract with Quality Bush Hog Services for mowing
Yes,
services.
I have been trying up until today to get as many quotes as I can. This was by far the lowest. I'm surprised we're making money compared to the other quotes we got. And so, to give you an idea, the quotes were coming in at $50,000 and $70,000, and this is at $20,000.
And the price last year was 20.
Correct, so it's very low increase.
Yeah.
So, and I think they did, I wasn't here last time, but hopefully the audience and the residents, will hope they did a good job on the last time. No, they didn't. I'll be here this time to take a look, and we'll see if you'll go into the beginning of next year. How about that, all right?
That's fine. Yeah.
Mark, are they local?
Are they what?
Are they local?
These people, when I say local, aren't extremely local, they're out with lots of hatches, you know. I'm trying to get local, in fact, actually, when I was reaching out to local, they're all saying thank you, but then they didn't come back with quotes, or they come back with quotes that were way too high.
All they did was drug a bush off, like a bat wing across the top of the deck. They didn't even mow down in the ditch.
Well,
That's
they're
right.
going to ditch bank this time.
So you're gonna use an arm
They're not
mower?
gonna get paid if they don't do what the contract says they're going to do.
They should be using arm mower.
They mowed
I
mine.
don't care what they use, they have to mow the ditch bank and the top of it.
But they
These
did.
hedge clippers probably.
Did we have an explanation of the, what they are supposed to do in our bid? Like what was put out? Does it say that in it?
The RFP?
Yes, sir, that's what I'm
It's not really an
saying.
RFP actually, because this was quotes.
Just an explanation of,
Yes,
you know,
it's
scope
here,
of
it's
work.
today, it has scope of services.
Scope of work, yeah, and it says
It
top
says you
10
have
dispatch.
to mow to a height of no more than 6 inches, the near side ditch bank and top of bank along the following sub-laterals.
Okay.
Mark, one more question. How many miles are they responsible for mowing?
57.
57?
57.
Very detailed, all day, exact mileage down to the 10th of every sub-lateral. They did a fine job on my sub-lateral. They definitely mowed down to the water line and cut that back.
The only thing, John, concerns me is if somebody's at 20,000, everybody's at 50, 70,000, and they're from lots of houses.
They did it last year for 20.
I get it. but They,
I never seen an arm mower even
you're
under.
talking about third of the price.
Well, again,
I know you're gonna be go there on the bulldog there. I know you'll be doing that, I hope you are. And then we'll see, but
we'll see.
Well, they don't do what they're supposed to do when we pay.
yeah.
But it was a bat wing, and all they did was hold it over the
It's
back.
fine. Again, we don't need to go over that. We have a contract, And I actually emailed a lot more than that.
It's a very detailed contract that they propose. I would,
It's our standard contract, all they gave us was the proposal.
oh, okay, oh, okay.
Everything else is ours.
But it's
It is pretty detailed.
it's a 12-page contract,
Yes.
so.
It's actually the same contract as last year.
Yeah.
So if it's approved, I'll fill in the blanks and we'll give them a sign.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, all in favor, approving the contract with Quality Bushhog?
Mark, I noticed in the proposal it said they're available to mow in November, which I guess they did last year.
And I did tell them that we were going to be approving it today, so they're all understanding the time.
So, nice weather areas for Thanksgiving.
Well, maybe.
Maybe.
They're not Thanksgiving, maybe Christmas.
Okay.
So they're just going in the winter?
So my proposal will be to the board for the first year of my operation in the district is to mow once and spray once, just to see how that works, and then adjust that to the following years as needed. So if we mow in the winter, that grass ain't gonna grow much for 3 or 4 months. By the time it starts to grow, we get it to spray just before the rainy season. That keeps the weeds down during the rainy season. By the time they start growing up by fall, we're gonna be ready to mow. So that's my hope. If we end up having to do more, we'll come back and do more. This year, we can't afford to do more. That's all we can afford this year.
Yeah,
One of each.
and I don't mean to object or anything like that, let's talk all the time. But my experience this year was the growth is in the summer, middle of the summer. All the things look like corn stalks and they was actually falling off the bank and hitting the mirrors, the rear view mirrors of the car.
Yes, I understand. That's
And
why
so
we spray
spray
them. Maybe in the summer and kill them, they won't be growing.
If we spray them during the summer, they won't grow.
That's correct.
But we're not gonna spray some of the spray truck.
We don't spray them when I actually spray.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Mark, I have a question on that. Are you talking about spraying the banks? In the past, way back, they used to spray everything.
Well, that's a discussion we're gonna have.
So we're gonna mow the banks and then are we gonna spray the water? Spray what's growing in the water?
I haven't really made a recommendation yet. It's not on Tuesday night, so I'd like to just
Okay.
get back to that. I need to talk to more people and just get more sense.
We don't have to make that decision yet.
Correct. So I think we approved the
I
contract.
think we did, yes.
That's it.
Pretty quiet.
So managers, would you like to take over now?
Yes, please.
So the financials, we have, since we meet once every month, we have 2 financials. And we also have the year end, because September was the end of the year. Okay, so the financials should look very much like the budget amendment we just did, because that's what I based the budget amendment on. So again, the financials aren't going to show you any more than what the amended budget shows you. So I really have nothing more to add to the discussion of financials. Again, other than the fact we only have about $140,000 in the bank, of which we've already spent a month and a half of expenses this year. And so I expect that that's probably a lot lower at this point. But our revenue from the tax collector's office starts coming in October and November, so we'll be fine.
You know how that comes in, Mark?
Yes, it comes in over, primarily it comes in over 3 months, but it actually comes in over the whole year, but the big chunks come in November, December, and January.
My question is, do they batch it, send it every week, once a month?
That I don't know.
Okay.
So it comes, what month of what year?
It starts coming October, November, and December. October 1 is the beginning of the fiscal year, so when you start paying your taxes, that money gets dumped to us. So people pay their taxes over periods of months. Some are delinquent, so that's why it comes in after January, but some wait till the last minute, that's why it comes in December. So it comes in November, December, January mostly, and then you spread it from that time.
So it'll come this year you're talking about?
Yeah, it comes every year.
That's what I thought.
During those months.
Great.
So you usually have to end up with about 100,000 in reserves to be able to operate for October and November to you that money coming in. And there's a little fact there, I mean, you can
Thank you.
as far as the next item, the manager report, something I'd like to start, and so each, I'll be emailing those reports to you, and then off once you have them, but then I'll put them on the agenda so the public can see them too. And the manager report is pretty much what I've been doing for that month, both administratively and other things. And over time, if you feel it needs to be more or less, just let me know, and I can make it more or less. But just what I've been doing again, is I've been working on transition administratively. The only thing left to transition administratively cleaning ditches nonstop. And if he can do a mile a week, we can get this district done in a year. And we should be able to get the worst of the worst done before the end of the season. Some question whether or not we can do a mile a week, and we'll find out over time. He did one ditch, which he said was heavily laden, but maybe not the worst of the worst, but still pretty bad. And again, it took him 1 week. So there may be some ditches that are worse, but on average, I'd say about a mile. So that's that. Status of canal maintenance contracts. I think you have a sheet in your package that gives you a summary of where those are at. And you go to that on that packet as well. So the main canal is completely done and accepted by staff. And there's been no issues found. The profile was fine, and we're processing the final invoice here in November. I'm going to skip Park Lateral and come back to that because there's some issues there. Lateral U is not completely done, but it was mostly done. When I spoke to him, he had about 3 weeks left to do, and it was about 3 weeks ago, so he may be done by today. But he'll probably end up with a walkthrough late November, early December, and then paint in December for his closeout. Park Lateral had one issue. Surprisingly, we had a visit from the Florida Department of Environmental Protection that says that we missed a permit that we should have had. Surprisingly, we asked if we needed permits before we started the work. We had a letter saying we didn't need permits. But this is a different agency, and they had a different opinion. And so we have stopped work on that ditch, and we have to get a disturbed land permit, which is nothing more than a permit that says, hey, I'm going to be disturbing some land. Because again, that Park Lateral has sections of it that we actually had to clear because we couldn't access. So I've left that permit filled out with George for George to look at, our district engineer. And once he's blessing that application, I will give that into DEP. Once they provide the permit, then we'll give a start work order back on that one. Contractor's okay with the stop work order, it's not a problem for him. And he probably has about 30 days of work left once the stop work order is lifted. He has just a very, very small amount of mulching to do at the north end, and he has to come back and fix the profile problems. And again, the problems were nothing more than you have a machine that's not accurate to the inch. So you're somewhat doing the best you can, and when you come back and measure, some places he didn't hit the line he told you to hit. So he's going to go back and hit the lines he's supposed to hit, the profile line, and then he's going to dress up the top of the thing from the bottom to the top. Not the bottom, from the south end to the north end. And again, it's about 30 days once that permit's released. So again, that's going to stop the order this time. That's all I have for that item. Moving on to amendments to the current year budget. This is discussion only. There's no action being asked for, but I did want to go over with you to make sure I'm on the right page with regards to, and also I did give a ditch cleaning report sheet for you to see, so you can see where Rob's been working. And I've asked him to keep this so we'll all know where he's been. The other thing I'll mention to you in Rob's work is he's going to go south, then north. South, then north. And I count 512 as the break-off point. So that way everybody gets some attention of Rob. We're just still focused on one area, we're moving around so everybody gets attention. And again, we're only hitting the ditches that I designate as bad. So if you have ditches you think's bad, send me some photos, give me a call, I'll have inspected, we'll add it to the list. Again, I've inspected about 25 ditches so far.
What ditches are you thinking? The canals down here are 19, 20, 21?
Yes, all the sub-laterals are what I'm talking about, yes.
Okay, yeah, we have to take a look at that.
Good, great, awesome, thank you. So getting back now to the budget, so the amended budget, we had basically two things we had to deal with on the amended budget. One, we had to deal with the carryover of the funds from the major canal maintenance because they didn't finish by September 30th. So we had to roll the unspent funds from those contracts into this fiscal year. Those are being paid out of reserves, so they don't really impact the budget that much. Not really at all, pretty much. In terms of the ad valorem that we get, not ad valorem that we get. The other thing, which is an impact to the budget, is the cost of meat, to be honest. The district was $75,000 plus or minus 72. They had some other charges in there too, website stuff and other things. So all told, there were probably about $80,000 a year maybe in the district. I'm not 80,000 a year, I'm probably closer to 150, 160. So that money had to come from somewhere. And so there wasn't really a lot of fat in the budget. There was some reserves that were put in at the very end, and then there was a large category for sublateral maintenance. And so we had to rob from both of those. Unfortunately, the reserves disappeared, and the sublateral maintenance went down to only about $30,000. Look at that number here, $31,000. And I'm recommending it not be used for sublateral maintenance, that it instead be used for cleaning up those ditches that we do not have access to. Because if we can't get to that ditch, I'd assure you that ditch is probably bad. So there's a number of places in the district we do not have access to the ditches because of fencing or because of growth of vegetation in the right of way. It just hasn't been accessed for so long, it's just overgrown. And so I don't know if 30,000 would be enough to clear all the areas we need, but that's all we have. We can only do what we can do. It's that simple. And I need to show my worth for the fact that I'm back in the budget. And I think the priorities that I'm going to be focusing on are what's needed in this district in terms of cleaning the sublaterals and creating a program that can be replicated year over year. And I feel confident that we can get the worst done by rainy season, as long as we focus and keep Rob working where he needs to work. And so, although we took a big hit this year, and this year is going to be a very tight year for the district, I think we'll still be able to accomplish the same goals we needed to accomplish with the old budget before this amendment would be processed. To be honest, there's really no choice on this amendment, because if we choose not to do it, you're going to have to fire me. And you're still going to have to roll the money over to this year to be able to pay the rest of those contracts. So it's almost... Now, I also did tweak, as you can see, a lot of the other line items, because when I talked about last year's final budget, where a lot of the line items went over, I said, let's not do that again. Let's not do that again. I've got double backup just in case. And so what I did was I went back and looked at last year's numbers on all these small items, these 5,000 items, these 12,000 items, these 20,000 items. And I went ahead and adjusted them to what I thought was more accurate. So I may have over-adjusted. So there may be fat in some of these small items. But I'd much rather have fat than be under, especially on a tight year. So there are other adjustments besides just my cost and the contracts. There are a lot of miscellaneous things in here that we adjusted well. And you can just compare the columns side by side and see where we make changes. And you can pull this up, last year's budget, you can see how they somewhat line up, these small items line up. And so all told, again, if this budget were to be spent exactly the way it is, we'd end up with only about 11,000 in the bank next year. So let's hope there's some fat in there, because we need a little more than 11,000 to get us through before the NAV start coming in next year. So it's a very tight year, very tight. And part of it was because last year's budget was so woefully under budgeted that we ended up losing a big chunk of our reserves just to make these numbers more accurate to what they probably should be. And again, hopefully I'm overestimating, but that's what I
Hey, Mark, real quick. I know, so now until the end of September next year, it's a tight budget.
Correct.
With 11K you said, maybe?
At the end of the year, maybe.
Okay. Is there an expectation for the residents here then to get our assessment jacked up to do that shortfall? Or
I
to
can't
give
answer
us?
that right now. You'll have to ask me that question about halfway through the year.
Okay.
I'll have a better feel for how those numbers are coming in at that point. Hopefully I get the answer, but it may have to wait till 3/4 of the year. I don't know. But there is something in law that does allow us to adjust the assessment.
No, okay.
It's not my goal. It's not this board's goal. I can guarantee you that. But we're living in reality. And the reality is what I presented here.
So, probably about June 2025,
Yes,
we looking at?
yes, sir.
Okay.
I would think, just to speak to that, if I could for a moment, I think we're gonna see a difference actually managing the process. I've met with Mark a couple of times. I think you can see that Rob is able to do a lot more than he was before. He's still the same Rob, he's still the same equipment, but it's a different direction, and that's not a reflection of Rob. I think you're gonna have to give him a little time. I think Mark is a proven product, and we're on the right track. You don't turn the train around real quick, and we're working at it. But I would not have to have a special assessment midstream. I mean, I would just, not something we want to do.
All right.
Thank you.
Hopefully we'll save some money. I mean, that's, they can be more efficient.
So that's all I have on that one. Again, that'll come back at the next meeting for formal adoption. Status of dish inspections, again, I hope yours is in color, because mine is not. And if it's not, my apologies, I'll try to make sure it's in color next time. This has no meaning, it's not in color.
I did the same thing when I
And so I apologize. But basically, I'll email you this map so you have it in color. But basically, I took the wall map that I had, I took a photograph of it, and then I colored it up so it stacks out a little bit better. And I apologize, it's not on color. I'll go ahead and make sure it's on color and get it online so you all can see it. I'm gonna keep this updated so we can see over time the ditches I've inspected. If you give me reports, then that will focus me on those ditches, because if you're gonna help me, I'm gonna hit those first. You know, because I don't have to look as hard, because you've done a lot of hard looking already. Hopefully I can fill this all thing in the next couple of months to give Rob very clear direction on where he needs to be working. So that's what this is, my tool, tool, how bad the ditches are. And here's the form on the next page of how I measure the ditches. And it's not objective, it's not science, it's an objective, a subjective determination. And you really have to look at how much weeds are in the ditch. If it's a few spots, it's not a bad ditch, it's a fair ditch. If it's half the ditch, yeah, it's starting to get pretty bad, you can take care of it. You got trees you got to be worried about, there's a lot of trees near the bottom, that's a problem, you need to take care of it. If there's no access, well, that's obvious. So I look at all these things, and then I go back after I'm done and compare it to the profile. See how bad the profile is. Not just the profile, but also have there been pipes put in at the wrong elevation? And yes, the answer is yes, in case you want the answer. There's a lot of pipes at the wrong elevation. Many of them, small amount, I don't care about. But there are some that are quite substantially in the wrong elevation. And I need to then at that point go back and look at the permit files and see if it's a permanent pipe. If it's a permanent pipe, somebody made a mistake. If it's an unpermitted pipe, then they're gonna get a letter, and let's fix it. And I'll have to come back to the board with a discussion on what to do if it's permanent. Because is it the obligation of the property owner to fix something that we told them to put in the wrong spot? That's a conversation I'll have. So that's the sheet I need.
I would just like to say one thing to the manager report too, that ties into this, because the few meetings that I've attended, you know, I know that you want to know we know what we're doing, and you want to know what we're doing it. And so, Mark and I talked about this, to have a prospective and respective in terms of, this is what I did last month, and this is what we're going to do next month, so we can see what's going on, and it's public information, so it's.
You are correct. Thank you for adding that.
And I think it's very important for you to think that we have an idea of what we're going to do here. And we also know how many miles we can out. We put out a lot of other information we didn't have a few meetings ago, so have a little more patience.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question, please? Do you know what year you were requiring permits on your culverts? I know
What year do we start requiring permits on culverts?
so that, and on those permits were elevation given.
It used to be done by Rodney.
Do you have records, Rodney's records?
I think Mark will find records of permits that were issued. Some of them were replacements, and I think Rodney went with just replacing pine. So when I took it over as the engineer, I went a step farther. I made sure that if it was a replacement or a brand new one, that it would be replaced with the proper size and inward. And so that's what Mark is inheriting from what we did.
When did you come in? When did you start issuing permits? That's a question I want to know too.
When Joyce retired,
2016?
2 years ago.
Joyce, she retired earlier than Rodney, so it was a little earlier than Rodney. I don't know.
Because prior to that, most of the time, Rodney would come out and
Rodney's
set
been
the
gone.
pipe.
Rodney's gone, Joyce, 2 years.
There weren't permits issued, they would come out and set the pipes.
I'm sorry, I forgot you on board for a while. Again, I'm not one who likes to worry about the past, I can't fix that, so.
I just want you to be aware of how the process works, that's all, because if you're sending, I'm just saying, okay, say for me, if I've got, and I don't, but if I have a wrong culvert that's set in the right of way, and it's at the wrong elevation, they were placed most of the time by Robbie to come out and
Yes,
set.
and that's why I just mentioned a moment ago that we need to have that conversation, because I don't know if it would be fair to impose that on the landowner if we told them where to put the pipe, or even worse, if we put the pipe in the door.
Because you said, you as a district is,
And then the last thing I have is the photographs and examples. Again, they read a lot better when it's colored. It just shows you what a good ditch is, a bad ditch is, and a fair ditch is. That's all I have on that. I'll move on to the next
Hey,
item.
Mark, before you, move on from, that little ditch report, is that, are you gonna post that online, so?
You talking about the form? You talking about the form here?
Yeah. Yeah, are you gonna go ahead and post that, so the residents can go ahead and download it, and then,
It's not a high priority for me, but yes, I will over time. I high priority thing.
I'll do it, I got it. I'll put it on our Facebook
I
page.
thought you already did.
Huh?
I thought you already did.
I did, but it's not on that. If it's the same, if it kinda looks like the same format, then yeah, you
I see
got
I see the one you did, it's fine. I mean, it's got a lot of extra boxes explaining things, but it seems to work.
it. Yeah, okay.
End of the day, I'm not gonna end up taking someone's report for word, I'm gonna put mine out. I just won't have to drive, because when I'm doing my own inspections, I'm crawling along that ditch, and I'm looking. But if I have somebody who's already looked at it, I might go a little faster, so I'll be able to do a lot more when the public's helping me out.
All right.
Can I ask you about no access? I know you said some is because of vegetation and overgrowth, but some is fencing. Is that just somebody put up a fence incorrectly and you can get the kids out?
No, it has nothing to do with incorrect fences, it has to do with the fact that our ditches now take up most of the entire 40-foot right of way. And if a property owner wants to put a fence on his property line, we don't have any more room left to maintain the ditch.
Okay, that's no.
Now, there may be some ditches we do have room, and it might just be overgrowth, but I know one ditch in particular has a fence on both sides for quite a long distance, which makes it impossible to maintain from either side. Moving on to the next item, discussions regarding city sublot maintenance. I think we kind of talked about that already. I've already given you a plan, so I don't think I have anything else to add to that. Moving on to the initial Narwhal Citizens Committee meeting. We met with I don't know the official name, Eastern Landowners Group?
Yes.
Eastern Landowners Group, and we're gonna meet with them on a regular basis just to have a conduit to the landowners and to, get some buy-in on things we're working on and some feedback, and maybe some good ideas. And so we'll continue to keep the board apprised of those discussions. Status of SDS transition, I went over that already, I have nothing really to add to that one. State Park stormwater runoff, that one's gonna take a moment. State Park stormwater runoff, I got a call today from Justin Teal, who said he submitted a permit application a couple of years ago that we denied. And he said we denied it because it did not address the 10% holdback. He called me back and today he goes, that wasn't the reason for that project. That reason for that project was for me to get access for fire control, fire management. I said, well, if that's what you need it for, and you're not claiming it's the 10%, we'll go back and look at that permit and see if there's something I can do for you. Because fire management's important. We want to protect not just the park, but the landowners who live next to the park for fire. We don't want that to happen. But I did tell him that that 10% thing is a legal commitment, and we're not letting it go until we talk about it. And he goes, that's fine. It's not so much me. I'm just a park ranger. That's above me. But send me the agreement anyway. He wasn't even aware of it. So I sent that over to him and told him we were going to talk about it. And so you have in your packet, you actually have the interlocal agreement, or that's what it's called. I can't finally see that's what it is. Yeah, the intergovernmental agreement. And you also have behind that the 2006 George was asked to opine on it, and he's given a small little response. So what the proposal to do is basically, and I wish I had technology to show everybody in the audience, I apologize, we'll try to get that hopefully in future meetings, but the continuation of Willow Street kind of runs right through the park when it goes north of, the developed area. They're proposing to put culverts in each of the sublaterals at that midpoint, and then create a long, short berm from each sublateral for a couple hundred feet, so that when the water is blocked by that ditch block, it now has to filter around that 200, actually 400-foot long berm, and so that way it doesn't get back into the ditch on the other side of the ditch block. It soaks into the ground, it sits in wetlands, it sits in other depressions, it doesn't make it back into the ditch. Their report says, based on their modeling, they're getting a 20% reduction in flow, and they're only required to get a 10% reduction in flow.
That's what this says.
All that being said, that's all fine and good if you want to go down that path, but the unanswered question is, they're still in our district, they're still contributing to flow, even with the 20% reduction, and they're not paying any.
Amen.
So,
Amen.
I would need some direction from the board on what our position would be before I start a conversation with the district, or I can have parts of conversations and wait for that direction to come. But one of the two should happen. They need to be out of the district, or they need to pay their fair share as everybody else. If they're out of the district, that's going to require a capital assessment in addition to the maintenance and administrative assessment, because we would then have to go do a perimeter berm along the new district boundary to physically stop the water from coming into the district.
Yes.
And I couldn't tell you what that price is at this point. I'd have to give it to George, we'd have to price that out. I could tell you what we like before we, make any, final determinations of our positions. But at the immediate point in time, I guess the easiest thing to talk about, regardless of their being in the district or not, is whether we support the proposed plan that they presented. And I can always get back to them on that, and we can have future conversations about the district. Let me stop for a second and hear from the board.
If they are proposing to burn 200 to 400 feet,
200 each side, so 400 total.
so what's the total distance between the sublaterals?
I think there's what about, how deep is your lots?
Quarter mile.
So it's a quarter mile between sublaterals. So that's 1,000,
280.
something like that.
It's still more than
So it'd be half. So the
It's
question
about a
is,
third, it's about a third. You're taking about a third is what they're doing.
Yeah.
the question would be, if you were going to burn that much, would it not be better to go ahead and try and burn the whole thing, hold all that water down?
Well, if we did that, that would be the decision of getting them out of the district. If we not building the berm there, we didn't build the berm on our property, our district property.
That's a complicated issue.
It is somewhat of a complicated issue. I will say.
John, why? These people haven't been paying, they haven't paid any assessments to the drainage district in 20+ years. Would this be correct?
That's correct.
I don't know that, but I believe that's correct.
I believe since they purchased the property and all that thing closed out, they probably have not paid.
I know that when we build a new subdivision, we can't look for, we have to store our own stormwater.
Yeah.
Okay? So if they haven't been paying assessments for 20+ years, why are we gonna build the block them off? They should be blocking themselves off.
They're not required to treat their stormwater. They're raw land. They're not required to hold any of it back. We don't require vacant land to create stormwater systems to hold their water back. So
Even though they have drainage in their system.
yeah, even though they may have drainage in the system.
So they can pretty much drain wherever they want.
They drain naturally, except for the ditches we
Yeah.
put in before they
They
bought
have
it.
ditches on that buffer.
Yes, the ditches that the district put in before they bought it.
So it was in private ownership, and the state, DEP, and St. John's River Water Management District purchased that property for the park. They indicated that they would pay $20,000 when that was.
They may argue against that now because they gave us a solution in 2006 and 2007. So they might have an issue with that, but yes.
Yes,
but they have not. That being said, I kind of go with what your first statement is that we should just fill the ditches, they should fill the ditches to their natural level. It's a park. They shouldn't be draining from the park, it should be natural.
This is what they say in here, that's exactly what they say that they did. Okay, so Judge Platt sold, he died, his heirs sold it, and then in this agreement that you're referencing, that's what they said, that they did these, geothermal engineering, all this stuff. And what they're saying here is that they would reduce the discharge by 20% and then plug their laterals.
Plug is not filling the ditch, plug is just one spot.
So that's, they weren't plugging.
That's different than filling the entire ditch.
So they say here that they went through to minimize the impacts to the remaining lands and drainage systems, to try to decrease the wetlands that was running onto your
Yes,
district.
yes, that is correct.
And then that just got dropped, am I correct?
Again, I have not found it in the files, that doesn't mean there's not something in the files, I just.
But nobody's seen any payment to your knowledge.
We have gotten the payments.
So
And
they have-
and they have not plugged the ditches, so that plan has not been implemented, nor has the 20,000 been collected.
According to this, this is a 10,000 plus acre piece that's entirely within the FWCD that pays nothing to cross our lateral.
Again, I have to look at the numbers, I don't know, the park may be 10,000, I don't know if the park in the district is 10, I have to look.
I think it says it in here.
Yeah, I have the district is less, the park itself is 10.
I had a quick question. We got an attorney here. Are we able to tax these, the park?
Oh, yeah, you're able to, I don't need to ask you, it's straight out of state law, you can tax a government body, they have to pay.
I say we do that. Just my vote. So.
I think that interlocal agreement needs to be looked at first.
But there's $20,000, that 20 grand's not gonna do just what?
I think something has to happen with this,
Okay, we need to hold on for a second, if we're gonna have a prolonged discussion on this from the public, we need to have it organized.
we're not, just
So we're
that was-
but you are, you're interjecting, he was speaking, so let somebody else finish their thoughts before we interject. Sir, you got the floor.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, for 20 grand, we'll get equipment on the property for 20 grand. 20 grand's not really gonna do, that's.
Again, that's why the board's talking about that. What was your comment, sir?
Only maybe Greg or Richard might remember this, but I believe that in the minutes of past meetings, they had, in your paperwork that you're looking at, calls for 36-inch pipes. The low water crossing, that's what we're talking about, right?
Again, I have not studied the report in detail to have it.
It's in your pack, it's in your pack.
Okay.
The water crossing.
Without looking at it.
Anyway, I think that it was in the minutes that they were reducing that from 36 to 18 or something, and then it was an EPA or something, had to be approved.
But let's just.
Yeah, I had Mark. It's past where y'all are at though. It's past where y'all are at. Go
At
ahead.
this point in time, we
Go
just
ahead.
have to move forward. And moving forward is direction from the board on what preferred position you'd like to have. Moving through the district, keeping the district, or let's push that down the road and start a conversation to see where it may end up. And just focus on the agreement for now. So hold on, let's let the board speak for a moment, please.
My recollection is that they came to us 2.5 years ago, and they wanted to they needed to be able to move a bulldozer in case of a fire, and that they were going to fill in those ditches so that they could move a bulldozer across them. And there was a discussion of whether there should or should not be a culvert in that where they filled it. And my recollection is it came, I was fine with not putting a culvert in, but I think the recommendation was to have a 20-inch culvert that they would put in there. And they, my the way I remember, they would agree to that, but they just had never done it.
The way I remember it, Greg, is that they wanted to put pipe in there to maintain the drainage, and they were afraid if they put a smaller pipe in there, it would be more maintenance of keeping that smaller pipe clean that they wanted to take on. And filling the ditch without a pipe, then it leads to blowouts, because if you have a ditch that's collecting water, it comes up to a plug, big rain will there's a lot of environmental issues that comes into play with putting a berm all the way across. And I think that's why this project right on the line, different environmental agencies with the state could never come to an agreement on how to accomplish runoff reduction and not impact the natural functions of the wetlands and the habitat over there. So it's unfortunate, and it's still an open subject that needs to be addressed.
My recommendation would be to focus on, to be honest, getting out of the district. I mean, but that's the most costly, the most regulatorily involved, and the landowners would have to do that. Because you're building a benefit that they all would benefit from, because it's all entering the sublaterals entering the park and entering the main, and so, I'm not sure their appetites for it. That's capital assessment for that. I don't think you can force the state park to pay for that berm or cut the district back. They have no legal obligation for that. So the only way to get them to solve the problem is to keep them in the district. That's probably the easier way, but then it's only fair for them to pay. And if they pay, why should they have to cut their flow? Nobody else is cutting their flow. Why should they have to cut it? If they're starting to pay, then we need to accommodate their flow.
Their flow is not cut at this point, so.
But my point is they would cut it if they started paying taxes.
They pay taxes like everybody else, then we use their money to make it right.
That's a lot of water, 10,000 acres.
A lot. I've heard right now, we've been doing it for 20 years for
I
free.
think what we heard is 2,500 acres.
Yeah, they have more than 10,000 acres, but the portion that was
It's taken-
inside the boundaries of the district, historical district,
It's in
was
here.
more like 23 or 25 acres.
But unfortunately,
It's still
water
large.
is flowing from outside the district into the district because the district boundary is not the high point of the park.
No.
So there's additional land outside the district that's flowing into the district. And by having that district line in the state park, I doubt the state park and the environmental people would ever allow us to put a perimeter berm to stop that high flow from coming into the district.
They need a fishing lake out there, what they need.
That's exactly
They
what
need
they
a
need.
fishing lake.
And the water goes there. Exactly what they need.
They need another headroom, is what they
So we
need. But not on our tax bill this time.
Yeah, this time they pay for it, and they put it in the middle of the park, and they can have people going in and hiking and fishing. Doesn't get much better than that.
Sounds good, doesn't it?
They did have something in here on the total acreage that I don't see.
So again, we're back to the board's thoughts on how to proceed on this.
Okay, 2,450 acres.
Thank you, ma'am. We're at the board now, so let's let the board come first for a few minutes.
So mechanics of assessing that.
Shouldn't be that hard. I mean, I have to
Technically,
read
they're
that.
still in the district. And, I don't think that this agreement ever says they're out. The center government agreement that's in the package. I have to read it another time, so it's kind of fresh in my memory. But Jonathan, since you're here, I mean, have you ever seen a situation like this? We just had to tell the property appraiser to put it in their tax assessment?
You have authority under 29836, and you're authorized to assess the state of Florida for their tax.
We can't hear you.
Sorry.
I don't know if this is working. Is it working?
I don't think it's working.
I'll just speak loud.
Thank you.
You have authority in chapter 298 to make such an assessment, so I can't speak to why that hasn't been done historically, but there is a legal basis for it.
In arrears?
I think arrears would be done.
That fix the problem there.
Well, we've always struggled to get their attention or focus on it. They'll say, yes, we'll meet with you, and then it's postponed. And maybe the only way we're gonna get their attention is like to put them on the roll, and pay an assessment.
That might not be a bad idea. Put them on the assessment, let them respond, and if they don't want to be assessed, they can go to the river forest.
Headwaters Lake number 2.
They're more.
Very good.
Be careful poking the bear.
That's right.
with or without the plugs, put the plugs in, they don't pay, or they pay, nobody has to put plugs in. And I don't think anybody wants the status quo of them not paying and not putting the plugs in. So the ones we want are one of the other two.
If you plug that, you're gonna flood town, just so you know that.
We're gonna plug who?
Town.
No, I think their proposal, again, is not a bad proposal in my mind. They're providing a bypass around the plug, but the bypass is an upward bypass, so it gives the water a chance to bleed down and go other places.
But that's only for 400 feet of the 1,200, correct?
400 out of 12.
Yeah,
It does get sandier, the farther east you go towards the beach.
that's
So
a
it
nice
doesn't-
road for the
Yeah,
lake.
to the east.
Right, to the east.
But the low spot in town is like Broadway in New York, and everything in the buffer is the same. It kind of comes this way, through like Sunag Trailer Park area is like the lowest part. It's all gonna come down 103rd, 107th, and like New York. If they start killing that flow at that end, it's gonna come this way because it's the lowest. If you look at what do you call it, topographical, you'll see the problem blocking it. It's coming Broadway.
So is the board's direction to authorize me to work with the tax collector and property appraiser's office to the assessment and then wait for their response?
I'm not really, well, versed on all this, but who would you talk to to even resolve any of this from the state perspective?
Well, if you're talking about assessment, we wouldn't talk to you.
No. My point is,
If you're talking about the plan that's in place, I would work through Justin Teal to get contacts with his superiors. And actually, he doesn't work for St. John's. He works, I think, for DEP. So St. John's is the owner of the property, so I have to find, and I have plenty of contacts with St. John's. I'm not worried about that. We'll find our.
that's the body we deal with.
Yeah.
I don't have enough experience in that area, but I don't like to talk before I start shooting, you know. Kind of see if, what might be able, what reasonable people might be able to work out as opposed to just ambushing them with attacks. But, you know,
I think Mr. Nelson just said that they've been trying to get them to do something for several years now, and nobody's come up with a
I have
plan.
no problem doing this with the letter, and obviously it's your direction, but I mean, you know, the letter saying we're gonna be assessing is gonna get just as much attention, I think.
That'll be a lot of
And
attention.
it's a little more courteous as well, so it's surprising, so.
we're talking about going to St. John's in Brevard County, or you have to go to Dallas?
Pompey.
Yeah, Pompey, right, yeah.
Now, maybe, you may be pushed up.
Yeah.
With this guy.
Hey, Mark, what amount of assessments will they get? Will they get the
2,500 acres times
On the
$39.
east, yeah, on the east side, their east
Unless
side.
they do the ditch plug, if they do the ditch plug, they can already make it a little less.
Yeah, so they're getting assessed about the 30 some, whatever.
Per acre.
Okay,
I'm not aware of any special thing.
There's our budget shortfall to fix things.
yeah.
Except when they file a lawsuit.
I agree, however, at the same time, right now, we're just
So
sitting there
maybe,
letting it go.
we let, our attorney just review these two real quick, these two documents, and maybe give, Greg a call afterwards, and give his 2 cents, and if it's the direction that, yeah, maybe that's where we go, just go that way.
George, you have any thoughts on?
So if you assess the full amount.
Good. Hey, he has something to say.
We're talking about St. John's, where that's who we're gonna be dealing with?
Yes, sir.
Both agencies have a vote, they own it 50/50.
All right.
St. John's and Department of Environmental
We
Protection.
just spent $3 million, paving, not paving, but whatever we call it, not sticking the Fellsmere grade, it really goes to nowhere.
So they've got a deep
All right,
vote.
let's stay on topic here.
No, I'm really, so it can't be a money issue.
It
It
can't-
can't
that's
be.
all we're
All right,
saying.
let's stay on topic, and George was asking a question, so.
If you charge them the full amount, the expectation would be from their side that you're gonna spend a lot of money cleaning their ditches.
Oh, yeah, they're gonna expect some.
And they don't want their ditches cleaned, so that's kind of a non-starter.
So what could happen is that we could assess them in a reduced rate, just like we do the east side, it could be the third unit, we have 2 units right now. Again, if you're not not getting service, you don't pay.
We do.
Now, you would pay the administrative portion, and, maybe there's an argument that you can pay for some of the operating costs of main canal and park, and would be their discharge, because they're contributing to that. Whereas the other unit doesn't contribute at all to it, it goes to St. John's headquarters, so they have no relationship, where they have still some relationship, so they could potentially argue for a small reduced assessment, because we're not maintaining some laterals, but we are going to have assessment for their portion of maintaining the main park.
Didn't that be something that would be negotiated?
Yes, that would be worked out when we have the conversation.
We're still gonna flow through our set laterals, to get the park laterals to the north. I mean, correct.
They used to have connections directly into the main canal, like a flood.
Why?
That was on the other side of the sand ridge.
Turn your property back to the wet.
Rehydrated.
Yeah. That would be better for the district.
Yes.
It's great.
And so again, I think by doing the assessment, it's going to get their attention, and all these things can be part of the conversation that starts.
I think I would be in favor of, we kind of new plan, we got a new manager. We got some path, let's start and move forward, how we take the documents we have, and how do we either compromise or, you go to war, you go to war.
So you're saying without
I'm saying, I don't
Nature of
have
assessment.
I'm saying, I think we still need some further discussion and ramifications of one plan or the other plan.
You send,
From my perspective.
you send a demand letter for an assessment, then you better have a deep pocket. So, my thought process is very simple with, I don't know, Joe, whether it's picking up the telephone, I don't know who you talk to, Theo or whoever it is you're talking to. And we've got a document, right? It's got terms of an agreement, and you start having a conversation about that document. And maybe you end up in a place where you explain very simply, you're either in and you're assessed, or you're out. But I think that's a discussion and a conversation.
But the conversation leaded that to start with that.
I think so.
Maybe a conversation with Doug or me.
What's that?
He's on the board of St. John's.
Oh, okay.
Gets referred to staff, and the staff just dies.
Yeah. They gotta get a decision maker. I just think that's better, from my perspective, is to try and make a deal before you draw the lines. But that's an experience.
So just some numbers there, Greg and Mark. I think the joint venture's paying $10.73, so for the 2450 there of land, it's acres, 26,288 that we could use.
Yeah, well, personally, I wouldn't put them in the same category because all our water over there goes to the lake and goes to the St. John's River. The problem is they're directly impacting us. That water comes down the hill into the district laterals, and in November it made a big impact.
Yeah,
So
that's
it's
why we're
definitely
here.
pay more than the administrative charge.
Yeah.
Definitely, if we get to that point, then definitely we need to pay more than the administrative.
Okay, all right, so in between $10 and $37 then is where,
And I think what we're hearing is the board's leaning towards, let's just start
yes,
a genial conversation that will likely end up leading toward that.
okay.
That's a good start.
I have my direction.
I think we start off with Houston, we have a problem.
I believe I have the direction I need, so I'm going to move on to the agenda.
Okay.
And the next on the agenda is attorney matters.
Just a reminder that if you have not completed your continuing education requirements, you're going to do that by December 31st. If you need the link to the free classes, let me know, I'll send it to you.
Yeah. Taylor class.
It's always more.
I believe there's also a requirement for, I got an email just the other day from a state agency, I'll have to send that to you, some other If that's what you meant by continuation?
I did.
Oh, okay, all right, I'm on the
There's
same
4
page,
hours.
I'm on the same page now. All right. Is that it, Johnny?
That's it.
All right, and then the next item is comments from the public. I'm gonna start with comments that have been received prior to the meeting by Rick. And then we'll go to the ones who want to speak their questions. So, starting with this subletter conditions check sheet. The residents have agreed to work with the district manager, and the manager will put eyes on each lease prior to designation. So that's the answer to the question. Number 2 on the list. Number 3, park lateral cleaning redo. Why was the contract not in the RFP? Well, it was in the RFP. What is the additional cost of this oversight? There was no oversight. As I mentioned earlier, it was just the accuracy of the machine. It wasn't able to hit spot on the number. There's no oversight. There's no bad things happening. It's just what happens. You come back, when the project's done, you make sure they did it right. They don't, they go back and do it. What additional cost will there be? None. They did it wrong. They didn't fix it.
Good.
What is the status of the work?
So they're not charging the district then for, redoing this. Okay.
And then the last one was, what is the status? I've already gone over that earlier in the agenda. Budget and ditch maintenance budget. Explanation of that, I went over that, so we talked about that in the agenda, it's already been approved. Faulty culverts, owner initiated. Property owners receive a 60-day letter if there is a non-compliant culvert, failed culvert, things of that nature, unpermitted culvert. What happens after the 60 days? And then what are the repercussions? And actions by FWCD. If the issue is not resolved in 60 days, repairs can be made by FWCD and the costs are assigned as a lien against the property.
A lien?
Yes. In the future, such costs are not paid, then the Department of Water Control can foreclose your property.
Question.
You said
We can foreclose on your property if you don't pay your assessment and if you don't pay any damages because of a failed culvert that we had to repair.
Question on the culverts. If you find in Rodney Tillman's files that the people since 1996, when I got here, went through the proper procedure, then, and you're deeming now, or Mr. Carter, whomever deems that our culverts are now non-compliant, but we put them in as was permitted at the time.
Yes.
Is there any leniency given to the individuals?
We talked about that earlier in the meeting, and the decision was we're gonna come back and talk about that some more later.
Thank you.
All right, so stay tuned, we'll have that conversation.
Thank you.
So the board will certainly roll that around your mind until it brings back up. Moving on, assessments. When are the assessments put in the budget? Sometimes these questions are hard for me to decipher because the budget's the budget. I think you mean when do the assessments come in? When do the money hit our table? And I answered that earlier.
October, November, December?
Are the big, no, November, December, January, the big ones.
You can pay your taxes now.
I've been there. I want you to get my $36 right now.
All right. Cooler to nowhere. I hope this is the last time we first have to talk about cooler to nowhere. But again, that was a emergency repair because of the 14-inch rain. What happened is the entire bank at the intersection of that sublateral and Park Lateral was starting to cave into Park Lateral. If we had not made the repair, it could have blocked the flow of Park Lateral. So it was an emergency repair. Unfortunately, it took us a couple months to get to it. It seems kind of odd to call it emergency and get to it until February. But it was an emergency. It was purchased under emergency authorizations, and the emergency authorization by statute is $100,000. So we were able to do this with quotes. We received 3 written quotes, and with the lowest, as we normally do. And the work was performed, it was all done, and that's probably going to be the future standard for outfalls into the main lateral and park. Because, as George has said, when you put a pipe in, it helps to control washouts because you're putting the water in the washout possible. As long as you have a long enough pipe, strong enough in walls to withstand any flow that may hit it, you're going to be fine. And that's a pretty long pipe, so it's got plenty of dirt to hold on to. So Obviously, that depends on money that we have available. You know, we couldn't predict at that time that we were gonna have a financial tight year. The board had no thought at that time of hiring me, they hadn't thought about potentially doing other things. And so, the money was spent for a valid purpose. It came to board, the board discussed it, authorized it through the quotes. And it's not a pipe to nowhere, it is an outfall pipe. It doesn't benefit a property owner, it benefits that entire road. It gives it a solid exit into Park Lateral that hopefully is gonna be there for.
Now, was the erosion,
Sir, you have his hand up, let's go
All right.
first.
Yeah, following up on that, a couple of times now, my wife and I have driven the entire length of the road along Park Lateral. And I looked at and I took pictures of every single outlet of every ditch running into the lateral. Okay, almost all of them are completely encrusted in brush, and there's no erosion.
Correct.
There's a handful up toward the northern end that have culverts in them. Some of the culverts are getting pretty tough, but most of them don't have culverts. None of the other sublaterals have any sign of erosion. There's an aerial photo, if you go on Google Earth or Google Maps, it was taken last summer, showing the end of ditch 2 dumping into Park Lateral, completely covered in brush. There was no way that that should have washed out. So what do you suppose caused that erosion?
I'm gonna let Mr. Simons here answer that, because I wasn't around then.
Thank you.
It's the same answer I did last meeting. It was a big storm.
Yeah, the big storm hit all of those ditches. It didn't just hit ditch 2.
Let me tell you a little example, unrelated to Fellsmere Water Control. City of Fellsmere, when I was the city manager, had a problem with the smell of our water. We were using ammonia to treat our water, and when ammonia went stale, we started smelling the smelly egg smell. And it was happening throughout the entire city, but the symptoms were only showing up in certain areas. The reason why is because you can't predict the complexity of water. Water is an odd beast. It finds its way through the weirdest places and does the weirdest things. So just because it didn't happen all the ditches doesn't mean it can't happen on one.
Let me ask it a different way. Was there construction done at that site?
You mean before?
Prior to the big flood of last November, was there construction done on that site? On that canal, on that ditch where it drains into the lateral?
I'd have to research the file, see if there's data.
I think that would be very worthwhile.
I don't really think so, because it's done, it's passed, it's over. I can't fix it, I can't get the $100,000 back. I'm not gonna take the pipe out, so why would I wanna spend my time doing it?
It could be worth, it could be
I
worth,
just don't see the value to it.
it could, this is why it could be worthwhile. Because I've also got pictures of a couple other sites where the vegetation was grubbed out of the bank and now there's erosion starting. And if that continues, is the district going to pay the cost of doing that because a private party went through and grubbed out trees from the side of the bank? I'm just asking. I think this is something that you do need to address, because this could keep happening over and over again. I do think that it's worthwhile knowing why that erosion happened there. Only on one ditch and not on any of the rest of them. It's really odd. I know water's odd, but it ain't that odd.
Well, I think my time would be more spent going and finding those people who are clearing my ditches illegally.
Yes.
Yeah.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
I think my time would be better spent finding those people who are clearing my ditches illegally.
And that's,
Which means get out of my office, get in my truck and do inspections, which is what I do.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd like to respond to one of your comments. We sent our survey crew down these canals, and it was just like clockwork. Everywhere there was a sublateral, there was a high spot in the canal, in Park Lateral or Lateral View, except for where there were pipes. That was part of the investigation and the idea of cleaning these laterals.
So, in your estimation then, would it be more advantageous to put in $100,000 culvert at the end of each one of these sublaterals, or just clean out the little delta that forms where they dump into the lateral?
How often do you want to clean the delta? That's another subject. As far as projecting maintenance going forward, we have to spend more money keeping up with the clean this stuff. So that we don't have to keep coming back doing the big job, and we can keep the maintenance under control.
These are all things that I'm charged with figuring out with George yourself. So I'm gonna be visiting other districts for best management practice. We're gonna be looking into it. What's the best way to handle some of the things we have to handle.
I think that would be excellent to develop a policy for that and have it written down so that people can refer to it and say, if I screw this up, I'm gonna pay.
Understand the best course of action. Yes. Moving on, if I can, 512 culvert repair. This is related to the culvert down on South 512. I don't think we need to talk about it because it's not our pipe. It doesn't belong to us, so there's no reason we need to talk about it.
But it belongs to, some of the gentlemen
No,
that
it
are up
doesn't.
here.
Why would you say it belongs to them?
Aren't they with, the?
But why do you assume that pipe belongs to them? It's under a county road. Why wouldn't you assume it belongs to the county?
Well, some of these guys, I got it.
Okay.
All right, so the north part of that collapse is owned by Fellsmere Joint Venture. The south part of it is owned by the St. John's Water Management District. So you just said in a few minutes ago that if there's a problem with a culvert, you're gonna go ahead and
That's not our
assist.
ditch.
What?
That's not our ditch.
Who owns it then?
It's not in the Fellsmere Water Control District, and it's just like any other road in the whole county. I mean, it's kind of, sorry, I'm just, to make my point, I'm just saying, if you think that we own that road, I've got a bridge.
No, I got you. I know you don't own the road, and I got it.
So it's a pipe that's under the road, just like a bridge, and it's the duty of any member county, it's County Road 512 to maintain the road, and they go out and inspect roads and bridges. And
So that is not a part of the district.
It is not in
right?
the Fellsmere Water Control.
That culvert out there, where it is right there, is
no,
not
it's
a
not,
part of the
it's not in
Fellsmere.
Fellsmere.
Then you're right,
It's because this gentleman's got his hand up.
then you're right.
Just wanted to remind you that we've been to a number of these meetings now, and we've heard over and over again that it's not the district's responsibility to maintain the culverts, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, but it is the landowners. And
And
that,
who owns the land?
the landowner, it's not the county that owns the land, from what I can see, it's a right of way. It's a right of way.
And they
That's-
own the right of way.
Well, not according to what I can tell by looking at the property lister's website, but maybe they made a mistake.
The website doesn't list ownership of rights.
It's been a public road for 70 years.
Yeah, I understand that, I
We all
understand
pay our
that.
taxes to maintain that road.
And
It's a county road. Unfortunately, the pipe got too old, it got to be replaced, and it caved in.
So it shouldn't be any problem just to go ahead and backfill that whole thing and disband the culvert and just shut it out, so might as well just.
Oh, I mean, the counties, what, part of the reason that there's been a lengthy delay is the county expected that they would be able to get it paid for by FEMA, Federal Emergency Management. And they made their application, they submitted it, but FEMA recently denied that request and said, and I don't know the reasons, but in any case, they said, no, we're not taking it as hurricane damage. You just need to replace it at the county's expense. So the county's gonna go out for bids to have a contractor go in and put it back in.
So I'm gonna move on from this topic. It's not a Fellsmere Water District topic, so there's really no reason for us to talk about it. I have 3 public comment sheets. If there's anybody else out there, please drop them on. Rand Porter here in Leadburg.
No,
Please
I'm
speak loudly.
All good.
You're all good? Next group, Mark Capecci.
Thank you. Just a few more questions. The total price for grubbing out Park Lateral is no different than what the original bid was that was accepted, is that correct?
We just, was there a change approved on Park Lateral? Yeah, so the price has been the same from the very beginning.
Okay, I'm just confused by this change order on page 6. I don't understand what these numbers mean. There's original contract price, increase or decrease from previously approved change, contract price prior to this change order, decrease of this change order.
Page 6 is the main canal.
Sorry?
Page 6 is the main canal, that's the one I inadvertently
Well,
said.
okay, but I'm just confused by it. I don't know what this progression of numbers means. Could you explain that, please?
Would have been nice to have that comment during that agenda item, because it's already been approved. But, can we see after the meeting on that one, please?
Sure, that's
All right,
fine.
Let's talk
That's
after
fine.
the meeting on that one. You have any
That's,
other questions?
so my main question relating to park lateral is that we're not paying anything extra for the extra work that they have to do. Great, wonderful. Then,
Hold on, his turn, he's got the floor. Go ahead.
I'm just curious, you've got a nice start on prioritizing the ditches that need to be cleaned out.
Yes, sir.
And if you already addressed this at the meeting, I didn't catch it, but why right now are we spending our time working west of Park lateral on a ditch where nobody lives?
I'm not in the business of deciding which landowner gets service. We all get service. We all pay taxes. We all get service. That ditch is a bad ditch on my list. It's gonna get cleaned.
It's not on your list.
It is.
It's not on your map here?
Yeah, U2. U2 is on the list.
The-
I've inspected U2 and it's ready. So,
Not on what's in the packet here. It stops
Yeah,
at,
it's on there, it's on there. It's also the abandoned
we
road.
don't have the floor right now, John Joseph.
The abandoned road.
where was that from?
Do you have any other questions, sir? Mark?
Oh, yes, sir, thank you. I'm still not clear on that, but,
I mean, there's nothing really to be clear about. Just because there's no houses doesn't mean they don't benefit. They have farmland potentially that they don't want to flood, so we need to treat them just as any other ones do.
yeah, but they're abandoned orchard groves. Anyway, we'll talk about that. But I wanted to come back to the question about what we're talking about with the faulty culverts. I do a lot of walking, around various areas and stuff, and I see places where it looks like the culvert might be failing, but you can't see the culvert because it's buried in muck.
Right.
So we don't know. So, I would just offer that as a suggestion.
No, I agree. I have not started an aggressive culvert inspection program. I'm focusing on ditches for now. Obviously, if it gets so bad it fails, we'll deal with it. But as long as it's passing water, I think my priority needs to be get the weeds out of the ditch first. And so once I get that done, and maybe while that's going on, I'm gonna start focusing hard on culverts.
Would there be a higher priority about just getting the weeds out of the main stretch of the ditch, or opening up to see if you can open up the culverts to let the water through when it does get there?
I think we're saying the same thing, sir.
Well, maybe I'm not understanding what you're saying.
Okay, let's talk after the meeting.
So the focus will be trying to get the culverts working?
No, the focus is to get the ditch clean.
So if the ditch is clean, but the culvert is
We're
plugged,
gonna know that as soon as we clean the ditch. And
Well-
then we're gonna take care of the culvert.
what I'm suggesting, I'm not trying to be a pain in the butt, but what I'm suggesting is that you could go around and visit these culverts pretty quickly. You could do a bunch of them in a day.
Covered in muck, you can't. You gotta get down in the weeds with your waders on, you gotta get a stick, you gotta feel for the edge. It's not that easy if it's a filled culvert underwater.
So you'd still have to do that if you were just doing full length, right?
Yes, but it would take me 3 years to inspect all the ditches, and you have weeds in your ditches for 3 years.
Okay, well, I guess I don't understand that rationale, but okay. And then I didn't understand what you mentioned about the part on the agenda about what the city is gonna do with their ditches.
I didn't say anything on the agenda today about what the city's doing with their ditches.
Well, I thought number 6 there said discussion regarding city sublateral maintenance.
That was a mistake on my part, it should have just said sublateral maintenance.
Oh, I see.
No, it wasn't city sublateral.
I see. Okay, all right,
That's
thank
my
you.
bad.
Okay,
I'm
thank you.
still trying to get the city out of my mind. 15 years is kind of hard, I'm still trying to get it out of my mind.
Okay.
All right,
That's
next on the
awesome.
list, I have a Josh Miller.
I have a couple recommendations,
You
and
got,
I have a couple recommendations and then a couple questions. No offense, but, I'm certified engineer down south, but I live here.
I need to get your phone number.
I'm not allowed to consult.
Got a lot of questions.
I just want to recommend to the chairman that when you ask for a motion, just don't ask for a motion to approve, because it looks like somebody might think you've already discussed this matter. Attorney Price did the same thing. And I was talking earlier when I asked about questions during the meeting, and you mentioned the word private conversation in public setting. I recommend not doing it anymore.
I don't think private as in private.
Oh, no, I understand, but the word private in a public setting might trigger.
It was work related, it was agenda related.
Oh, no, believe me, I understand sidebar. Just the word private is what I was just recommending.
I used the wrong word.
The questions I have are, number one, I understand Rob is your only employee, correct? Besides in the field,
yes,
do you have a plan for succession for him if he wasn't here all of a sudden, or do you have a succession plan for somebody?
Yes, I'm working on a succession plan, sir, yes.
Okay, okay. Number two, do you plan on following the water control plan that's been implemented as part of the drainage district, or is it something you're going to revise in the future?
We're gonna be having conversations over the next 6 months about that, because one of the things I feel is that maybe our water control plan needs an update. Maybe the system that was designed 100 years ago, maybe it needs to be a little different now.
Well, I know when it was revised or amended in 2000, there's verbiage in there that talks about the sub-levels being cleaned continuously. So that's why I want you to focus on that area, if you're gonna follow that or not.
Well, I think I've pretty much said almost nonstop today that that's my priority.
Okay. And my last recommendation will be, it seems like there's some back and forth with you as presidents here relating to, I don't want to pinpoint your expertise or your vision or your possible determination of what's bad. Maybe it would behoove the board to hire a third party for that, whether it's Mr. Simon's group or somebody to do an engineering report and get the official what's needed from somebody that's outside of your salary paying position. It's just to recommend that. I want to bring forward.
We're gonna consider that. Next one up is Christine Hall.
Just a couple of questions. The trail that runs from the big lake that's on South Carolina, and this might not be your area, but I just wanted your input. When you take that trail to the east that goes to the new improvement where it's paved and goes to the bridge, there's a huge washout where you can't get through whether you're on horseback, bicycle.
It must have grown bigger, because I was on that road probably less than,
There's cones
the
that
time kind of runs in my mind, but I was there, I would say 6 months to a year ago, and it wasn't that big, so it must have gotten a little bigger over
It's
time.
deep. I mean, you weren't going through it.
Okay, well,
So-
I appreciate you letting me know that.
Yeah, I just didn't know whose responsibility that was, and I just came upon it on Monday, so.
Thank you.
You guys talked about the contract that you approved for mowing the canals. Now, this is gonna be the same thing as
Before
before.
we go on, can I ask you a question? Is that east of Willow?
It would be west of Willow.
West of Willow?
So where Broadway dead ends into South Carolina,
Uh-huh,
there's a ditch right there.
yes,
And beyond that, there's a trail that you can ride that'll take you to Willow.
right.
It's on that
So
trail.
it's Broadway, Willow.
Yes.
Back behind the riding club. Behind the riding club.
Yes, yes,
It's just south of the riding club.
Mhm.
Thank you. Lady, next question.
So mowing the canals, it's the same thing that you guys did about a year, or had contracted about a year and a half ago, where they come in, they're gonna just mow the top of the ditch and the side of the ditch.
Correct.
What is that doing for our water flow?
My understanding is that was started a couple of years ago because of the demands of the landowners. They didn't like the aesthetics of the weeds.
How much is that costing us
$21,000.
for aesthetics?
I prefer not to do it, but,
We're a water control district, aren't you?
well, it is somewhat related to maintaining ditches. I mean, we do reduce the friction of growth along the ditch bank. It does increase the flow in the ditch.
Okay,
So by
but what about the
reducing-
other side of the ditch that you're not maintaining?
I'm
I'm
not
just,
sure how to
I
answer
mean,
that.
I'm just saying. It's a lot
Hey,
of money.
if I didn't have to spend $21,000, I wouldn't spend it, but that's what, one, I inherited, and two, my reason I think I inherited is because landowners were demanding it a few years back. And
But maybe that was because they weren't getting.
maybe it was because they were getting other things done, huh?
So, okay, so maybe that's something we can look at.
Well, we're gonna look at it, we need to look at it before the next week is over, because I'm about ready to give a
Well, no,
contract.
that's fine, but I'm just saying in the future, is that really what the water control district should be doing?
So maybe next year we can reconsider that.
Yeah, okay. So next week you're gonna start on ditch one, you told me that.
If he finishes ditch two, yes, we're gonna go up to U1 next.
Just a question, the material that you guys are gonna take out that canal. Now, we're on a very narrow, private, small path. You know, you've been there. Where's that material gonna
It's
go?
going on the top of the bank,
Which side?
on the roadside.
On the roadside.
Now, your piece that I have to access to clean out the wash out of the pipe, we want to talk to you about that, because we'll be accessing that through a verbal permission with you.
I didn't, can you say it
I'm
again?
sorry, I was leaning back, my mistake. When we get to the end of the ditch where your property's at, we have to have a conversation with you about that, because right now, we have your verbal permission to be on there. We might want to make that more legally sound in case something happens. We don't want to be in an odd position.
So we just talked, and we did talk.
And so we have a draft easement that's been put together. We'll get that to you hopefully in the next week or so. And we need to execute that first. But the material that's coming out of the ditch that's near your property, I've got no place to put it.
Okay.
So we need to talk about whether there's a spot that you'd be comfortable.
Yeah,
You know,
okay.
we can bury it in the corner where it doesn't bother you or something.
I'm willing to work with you
But
guys.
other than that, normally it just goes around the top.
Okay, so the material that you throw on the top of the bank, am I allowed to get rid of that material and just go store it somewhere in the corner?
I have no problem with that.
Okay, just wanna make sure. Okay, so that's a possibility. Okay, that mystery gate at the end of ditch one, what are we gonna do with that? Are we just leaving that?
Again, a part of my program
What
is
do
to
you-
expressly gain access to ditches we don't have access to.
Okay.
In some cases, it's just simply clearing trees. Other cases, it's negotiating an easement with the landowner.
Okay, so that, your goal with that culvert that collapsed there is just to dig it out?
See how bad the culvert is, see if it needs replaced. It's another end of
Okay,
ditch culvert, not going into the park, but going into the north-south IMG ditch. But
right,
still, it's a major outfall pipe.
right.
If that fails, I think that's a responsibility of IMG because they put the ditch in and that pipe is drained into their ditch.
It's the Florida Atlantic Citrus Property Owners Association, which IMG is the biggest landowner, and they have a representative on the board for that property owner. For the Property Owners Association, IMG's man is on that board. I think he's the president.
Okay, so, are you guys aware that ditch one to the west of Park Lateral does flow west instead of flowing east into Park Lateral?
Yeah, up in that area, there's a couple of ditches that flow both.
And it was they changed all that when,
It was permanent.
so you did research that because you saw that there was no ditch?
Yes. When I went out there the first time, saw those structures in the ditch, I said, what are structures doing in this ditch?
Thank you.
And then I found the permanent plans, it's a whole set of plans.
Right, exactly. So you're aware that everything's gotta flow west on that. Okay, thank you guys.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Next up is Julie Steiner.
I'll ask you after. It's about water levels and a delta ice forming. We'll talk about it after.
Okay, last is John Savage.
We'll try to go easy. I want to first thank the board just for listening to everybody. My biggest concern is we've removed all of the public comments from the minutes of these meetings. In other words, all we are is a name on a page. Nothing we've said, not meaning like out in the open, but as these comment cards. There's been no minutes of the public's comments or concerns.
Thank you.
If you as the custodian,
I'll take care of that for you.
we gotta get the public back in the minutes. Mark, this is not against you, but I want to thank y'all for listening to everybody, because y'all really done a good job. Y'all have done a good job listening.
Thank you, John.
I just want to make clear while we're here that Mark is not being paid or involved in any other business of the boards of the corporation. Anything. Is Mark involved in any other operations of y'all's corporation?
We have a consulting contract with Mark, Fellsmere Farms, regarding issues of the city of Fellsmere that Mark was involved with previously, because Mark has been there the whole time. So we pay a small consulting fee to Mark to be available to answer to us technical questions with regard to the city comprehensive plan.
This was back when he was the city manager?
I was at the city for 15 years. Before city manager, I was the planning director.
Before, I thought he was the code enforcement.
Well, code enforcement was one of my duties,
Okay.
but I was basically running the entire building and planning and development department.
So it's yes, but you employ him as a consultant of some type?
Yeah, not really employed, it's just pay a consulting fee.
For Sun Ag or joint ventures
For
or?
Fellsmere Farms.
Fellsmere Farm? I thought that was done away with when it was turned into Sun Ag.
It's still Fellsmere Farms and Sun Ag.
I mean, I know like everybody knows it is that, but
Yeah.
it doesn't really exist anymore as an LLC, right?
It doesn't exist as a what?
No, as a corporation of any kind. I thought
No,
it was-
it's just a registered, what would you call it, fiction name.
Yeah. I just remember seeing the paperwork where Fellsmere Farms was voided and became Sun Ag, no? Richard's shaking his head no.
That was Fellsmere Farms Management Company.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it became Sun Ag, but still Fellsmere Farms is still just
Maybe that's what I'm
name
talking
for
about.
Fellsmere joint venture.
Anything else you have, John?
That's it, man. Thank you for your job, though, Mark, because it is getting to get better.
I appreciate that, and that's what I'm here for, to try to get this thing running. I'm gonna take, you've all spoke, so we're gonna take that gentleman in the back who has it, anybody else who wants to speak, and if we have the meeting.
In the red shirt?
Yes,
So you were talking about cleaning the ditches out, and I watched them pull all this stuff and all this crap on the top. It's just gonna stay there, dry out, and that's it? Or you guys have got
No, it's
to
gonna
get
stay
sprayed?
there, it's gonna stay there, dry out, and that's it.
So then when the guy comes through with the grader, to grade the road, and dumps it all back in the ditch, what was the point of even going down
They
there?
don't grade towards the ditch, they grade away from the ditch. If they're grading towards the ditch, that's another reason why I called the meeting with the county.
Yeah, because if you go down the other south, they put it all up, it comes through, pulls, then goes back the other way. All the stuff they pull out from the top is now back down the embankment and going back.
Again, we
to
would ask for a meeting with the county road grading crew to make sure we're on the same page, so.
What
I'm not
is
gonna
that?
guarantee it's not gonna happen before I have that meeting, because we are cleaning ditches now, but we were gonna resolve that very soon.
What is that location?
89th Street South, whatever it is, 18.
We just cleaned 89 a while back, and so they must have.
It all got,
I'll drive down and take a look at it and see how bad it is. I appreciate you giving me that heads up.
That's why I brought up the water control plan, because it specifies in the water control plan that you're gonna haul that off. That's why I asked you if you were gonna look at
I
that.
don't believe it says we're gonna haul it off everywhere, it says we're gonna haul it off in the city of
For
Fellsmere.
all residential parcels.
You're not residential, you're rural residential ag, we're talking city of Fellsmere, that's for
Not
residential.
according to the property rate or tax collector. So,
Let
yes.
me put it this way, we're not removing the stuff from the ditch, and carting it away, except, and we don't even do that in the city of Fellsmere, to be honest. And if that's something you all wanna do, then we're gonna have to assess you all for that to pay for it.
Well, I understand, I'm just saying your water control plan says that. So I asked you if you're gonna look at that and review that to see if it needs to be obviously corrected, if that's not your plan and your path.
But yes, my goal is to follow the water control plan, but if it needs adjusted, obviously we need to adjust it. I have nothing else, again, we're gonna take additional comments later, you've all had your chance to speak under public comments, we're gonna get back to that, we're gonna finish the meeting and come talk to me after the meeting.
One moment, back here. Sorry.
Sorry, the person in the back, yes ma'am?
So, I think your name is Johnny, the attorney?
John, yeah.
You represent Fellsmere Farms, I understand you're from
I represent the water control district. I have no relationship whatsoever with any landowner within the district.
Thank you.
So, at this point, we're at board member comments.
I have just a couple things. One question, where are we with, I think, financial to use a local depository?
I tried to put a call into Isabella, she's just one hard cookie to get a hold of, so I don't have an update. When I last spoke to her, probably 30 days ago, she said she needed 45 days to do it.
The other comment I would make was the meeting you had with members of the landowners, the minutes and stuff, I thought were very professionally done. I thought that was a great step forward.
these property owners, landowners, because they're the ones who are all behind it.
Okay, yeah, thank you. It's very well done. I like the format where you put your information together. Very good.
Any other board comments?
About Jeremy?
Oh, I'm sorry, I do have one thing, George, I apologize. You were wanting to do another thing, talk a little bit about one of the developments coming into town.
Okay.
We're going to start with George and I am on here, so.
Please go ahead.
Under review is a subdivision plan right now called Marion Estates.
Right, talk out this way so we can hear that.
It's called Marion Estates. It's a small lot subdivision, very tightly density wise. They're packed in there. They're showing the back of their 50-foot wide lots, very close to our 40-foot wide right of way for one of our ditches. It actually goes from County Road 512 all the way to ditch 18. So 16, 17, and 18 are all part of it. 17 in particular is going east-west through the heart of the subdivision. And my concern is, if they build these lots, we won't be able to get equipment in there to maintain the ditch. So, from a board's direction, I would like to tell the applicant to set aside 25 feet for an access road. That's kind of the normal. They'll probably push back and want us to reduce it, but I've got to start somewhere trying to maintain access.
Tell me exactly where it's at.
It is west of Myrtle, which is the far west street in the heart of the city.
Yeah.
It's that big 80-acre tract of woods on the south side of County Road 512 between 141st
Okay.
and Myrtle Street.
Okay. Okay.
They're gonna have commercial on 512, and then it looks like multifamily behind that, and then just small lot, single residences.
Who's the builder?
Ryan Holmes. Ryan Holmes. Joe Paladin is doing the site infrastructure, so I should correct myself. Ryan is only building the homes, Joe Paladin is doing all the site.
He's doing all the entitlements?
All the entitlements and the site infrastructure.
Yeah.
How many units? 332.
On how many acres?
78, actually 70, because 8 acres on 512 is going to be commercial.
So,
They're putting in a gravity sanitary sewer collection system. It's gonna be so deep, I don't know how they're gonna install it, it's gonna be well into the water table. And they're gonna be crossing our sublaterals. So they really need to get a utility permit as well.
so they're not having for septic tanks, they're gonna have
They have a lift station,
Oh, okay.
and so the gravity takes it to the lift station and pump it to the force main.
So is it all right for George to push back and request a 25-foot easement along ditch 17? Ditch 18, we did negotiate a 15-foot dedication. They're giving us 15 feet on the north side of 18. I don't know, it's gonna help us much, but.
I don't know if that's gonna be accessible for us to use.
I know, well,
And that may full if it's a landscape buffer.
no, it's not, it's a separate dedication. They're giving a dedication of 15 feet.
To the city or to the district?
We'll work with the city to see what's best. That's probably at this point to the city. They're not doing anything on 16, it's a very short segment.
Ditch 18 is a southern bypass. It's bigger than normal ditch. It's more important as far as the drainage. It carries more water. So that's an important one. I'm glad to hear we can use that extra 15 feet. But the one on ditch 17 has me a little concerned about it. I had three apps with this guy.
Yeah. I mean, shouldn't we be telling them rather than asking them? Yeah.
Well,
I think we also have to go through the city and get the city to support our request, because at the end of the day, the city's gonna approve the development order, and we need the city to support our request, because the city, they basically say you can't do it. And unfortunately, at this point, they're so far down the approval process, we need to start that conversation immediately, because they're probably a month away from public hearings to be approved.
How do they trump our position? They don't have, they don't.
because our right of way is so narrow. They're bringing their lot right over the right of
Well, I
way.
understand that, but what are the rules for us? I mean, it's our
We
drainage.
don't have the right Cities can do that,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
they negotiate a development award.
No,
They
it's-
want something from the city wants something back from them.
No extortion clause.
And so I would suggest that George and I reach out to our city immediately and try to get this into their conditions. of
Yeah, I mean, if they don't wanna do that, then
There's
they
some legal horsepower too.
Happy to help.
So probably, well, that is some kind of restrictive easement, no.
Covered in woods, now we have any kind of.
Well, they're also gonna have to, they're actually gonna have to have their own collection on site. They can't run that off.
Oh, yeah, they have their own lakes, they got their lakes and stormwater.
And the good news is that's every 1 acre parcel or less pays a full assessment.
Oh, yeah.
So we take
That's
70.
another solution to our,
300.
budget problem.
So that's the rose on the.
There it is. You got that. George, anything else you can put up?
Is it, I just, on that same subject then, Ryan's already got the approval.
No,
They're not approved from the city then?
no.
Okay, so you still have the ability to go in and say, hey, we have to have that easement in order to get our equipment back there as the district.
That is correct, but it has to be through city action, not directly.
I totally understand that because it's the cities, but it sounds like if we don't do it now and get that easement set immediately, then you're out of luck, is that correct?
Yes.
Well, we still have our right-of-ways, existing right-of-ways.
We still have the existing right of way, but the ditch may take up the whole thing, which makes it hard to maintain. All right, I have nothing else before the adjourn the meeting, but
We're adjourned.